Ridiculous. I am ridiculous. Don't worry about me. Don't mind me, folks. The Hegelian Dialectic. Going to talk briefly about what it is, but I'm going to start by telling you what it isn't. If you're a member of the conspiracy theory community, if you drink from this well, when I say Hegelian dialectic, it's probably a term that you're familiar with. And you're probably going to say, I know what the Hegelian dialectic is. It's problem, reaction, solution. The powers that be, the cabal, the Illuminati, call them what you will, play a game with mankind to keep us running around and to keep us to do, but doing it in a way that doesn't let us know what's really happening, what's really going on. They show a problem, gun violence in school, because they want to disarm us. So the problem is guns in school, gun violence. And then the reaction is people go crazy. We our kids have to be safe. We have to be safe. I have got anxiety. What? And then they propose a solution. We've got to get rid of the guns. If we get rid of the guns, everything will be hunky dory, a-okay. Problem: gun violence. Reaction: through social media, through orchestrated protests. This guy, that guy, this organization, that organization buses people's up, makes videotapes people having protests to drum up the natural reaction of people to this problem. Propose a solution, people go for the solution. Like mice going for the cheese, will accept their solution and they get their way. A disarmed public that's easy to control. Okay? Well, I don't know what that is, and I don't know if that's the case, and we'll get there. But that's not the Hegelian dialectic. It really isn't. And the purpose of this video is to briefly illustrate, kind of pointing towards what the Hegelian dialectic actually is, just to prove the point that what I just described, this problem reaction solution that we often hear as being the proposed definition of the Hegelian dialectic, just simply isn't. That's a false premise. That's not what George Hegel was proposing when he was talking about his dialectics, which is a complex, George Hegel is a philosopher. It's a complex philosophy, this notion of the historical dialectic. What is it actually? So let me just emphasize the point here. George Hegel, in his illustration, are talking about his philosophy or his philosophical theory of a historical dialectic, never used the terms problem, reaction, solution, and specifically never engendered, enjoined, or desired to put forward a philosophical teaching whose primary purpose was an instruction manual for dictators or tyrants or cabals or Illuminati puppet masters to control people. It just wasn't the case. You know what I mean? Much in the same way that people will describe someone as Machiavellian. That's a Machiavellian thing. Well, The Prince was not an autobiography of Machiavelli. He was not a really a nefarious guy. He didn't propose that the theoretical historical advisor to the prince was, a good guy that should be listened to. It's a philosophical treatise. But anyway, not to go too far afield. What is the Hegelian dialectic system or theory anyway? All I can do is point at it like a kindergartner. Okay? Hegel as a philosopher is a dense philosopher. No student of philosophy, no professor of philosophy, if he was trying to give a 101 of the world history of philosophy, would start with Hegel. They wouldn't start with him from a historical perspective, but they wouldn't start from him from a educational perspective, because he's a complex philosopher. So when you hear people make 5 or 6 minute videos purporting to tell you what the Hegelian dialectic is, you're off to a bad start, because you can't do Hegel in 5 minutes. It's just not going to be possible. I can point at it, I can describe it a little bit, but I'm not really going to be able to get you there. But we'll get to how you can get there. I'm going to give you a solution at the end, a real solution to the problem of not knowing what the Hegelian dialectic is and not being willing to take just C.W. Chanter's word for it. I'm going to get you there. Don't worry. Stay with me. Okay, what is it? Basically the nutshelling it as best I can. And like I said, this is a real just kind of describing what it is briefly to illustrate why it's not this problem reaction solution. The terms that are used by most educators in trying to describe the dialectical theories to students is doesn't have anything to do with problem reaction solution. It has to do with thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. You can tell by my pronunciation that it's been a while since I've been in the philosophical classroom. Forgive me my indiscretions. Basically, what the dialectics involved is Hegel as a philosopher believed that mankind mankind's thought process, political process, theorizing was going from the crude to the pure, that we were in a process historically of finding out ideas, testing out ideas, and the best ideas were going to rise to the top. And that through the process of human development that he could trace back from ancient Greece forward, there was a process whereby thoughts and ideas existed, and then new thoughts and ideas would come up as a kind of a reaction to them, or in the space that those original ideas created. And through that interaction of the old thought with the new thought, uh, a synthesis, a hybrid thought would come up from that that would be kind of the best of both worlds. And then that synthesis would become the new thesis, primary historical concept, idea, political theory, philosophical idea that would again through this process then enjoin and engender responses and reactions to it, antithesis blah, that would again lead to new synthesis. So let me do this. This is the best way that I can think that I can do it for you guys. It might make sense. Let's think about the Magna Carta, and let's think about then the American Revolution. So think about it this way. Okay, here's the original premise. The King of England is the King of England is the King of England. What can the King of England do? Whatever he damn well pleases. Speak out against the king, whether it be a righteous criticism or a foolish endeavor, off with his head. Hey, it's good to be the king, right? Courts of the Star Chamber, no due process, um, prima nocturne, the first, all the crazy bad things that royalty can do, the original scumbags of the world, right? They could just do. So then in England, jolly old England, the king's power is absolute. But think of that as the thesis. The king's power is absolute. The king can do whatever he damn well pleases. That engenders and creates an antithesis starts to come up. The rabble is starting to speak. The commoners, but more importantly, the noblemen, right? The dukes and the duchesses, the people are getting angry and they've had enough of it. And then eventually you come up with this synthesis, the Magna Carta, a predecessor to our, first, it's the first time where the king's power becomes checked. And all of a sudden, the people make the king sign a document that says, hey, it's good to be the king, but I'm not here to be a bad guy. And we can all agree that I and my ancestors and actually my heirs and assigns will be bound by certain rules contained within this document, the Magna Carta, that says what I can do, but more importantly says what I can do. Thesis: the king's power is absolute. And antithesis: the king's power shouldn't be absolute. It should be checked, monitored, and he shouldn't be able to do whatever the half he damn well pleases. Right? People got rights over here. Synthesis: the Magna Carta, a document that strikes a balance between the two. Then the Magna Carta becomes the new thesis. Time goes on, history develops. British people go over to America, the colonies. They start to think of themselves as less and less British and more having their own thing going on. and the king's power, the thesis of the king's power under the Magna Carta becomes challenged again. But that thesis becomes challenged by a new antithesis that says the colonies want to be free. And the synthesis then comes forward, the Declaration of Independence, whatever, you know what I mean, Bill of Rights, yada, yada, US Constitution. And that process goes on throughout history. Now, that is any philosophical teacher will tell you that what I just did barely counts, barely counts as an adequate or semi-adequate description of what the Hegelian dialectic is. It kind of is a kind of a simplified example, but illustrates what it primarily is, which is not a problem reaction solution or a playbook for Illuminati or powers that be to control people, but rather is a philosophical teaching that says that throughout the course of human history, ideas are transformed by new ideas, and the interaction between the old idea and the new idea creates a hybrid. Kind of think about it like genetics. Mama and papa have a little baby, right? But the more important thing to know is that it's not a problem, reaction, solution. It's idea, idea, new idea. And Hegel, it's really important to know that Hegel wasn't when lying this out, just like a geneticist telling you what happens when a man and a woman have a little baby. They're not saying that that's, that the baby is going to be a good baby or a bad baby. They're just describing the process, that the ongoing historical process where generations beget generations. So what happened? Basically, to the best of my knowledge and understanding, you need to know and understand that Hegel was a very big influence on. So let me just sum it up again. Hegel's dialectic, the Hegelian dialectic, is not problem, reaction, solution. Hegel never once used the terms problem, reaction, solution in his teachings. He didn't. I'm not saying he never used the word problem, well, he didn't speak English. He didn't write in English either. But I'm not saying he didn't use the German equivalent of problem, or he never used the German equivalent of use the word reaction. I'm sure the word reaction appears somewhere within the guy's writing as probably the word solution, but never in the context of lying out this thing, the dialectic. It's not what the Hegelian dialectic is. I don't think he even really used the terms thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. Those are just the ways that we kind of boil down his philosophy about the dialectic, the historical dialectic, and explain it to ourselves to try and come to grips with this guy. This guy's writing was incredibly dense. He was not, he's not, this is not math for living, right? This is not where they sent guys like me to take math classes in high school. This is like complex algebra or geometry or something. It's complex stuff. It's really crazy cadoodle stuff. It's so complex that there's people out here that think that it's quite possible that this thing doesn't make any sense at all, but whatever. The reason it's come to this conspiracy theory and the conspiracy theory world teaches that the Hegelian dialectic is problem, reaction, solution primarily begins with the fact that it has to do with what I call inherited conspiracies. Many of the conspiracies that we have and we deal with today, regarding, the cabal, the Illuminati, the Jews, the Jesuits, the Roman Catholics, the Vatican. A lot of these things people need to know and understand are inherited conspiracies. There were conspiracy theories of the past that became part and parcel of the body of conspiracy theory that then really in kind of the late 90s and early 2000s really ramped up and became part of this, conglomerate of or all pervasive philosophy of conspiracies, primarily taught by a man named William Cooper, his predecessor Eustace Mullins, and then really coming to a fore with guys like David Icke and Alex Jones, where all these varied conspiracies were then brought together and were seen as one big part and parcel of one big whole that was going on, right? That the theories about the Jesuits interacted with the theories of about the Jews, interacted with the theories about the Catholic Church. It then added into things about Holocaust denial. That all the various conspiracies that existed in their own little historical contexts and milieus were brought together in a kind of unified theory of the grand conspiracy. So the Hegelian dialectic, Hegel was a big influence on Karl Marx, and Karl Marx's teaching about the historical, really took a lot of what Hegel did and ran with it. Then, of course, well, Karl Marx's teachings about socialism and communism beget the USSR, a grand enemy in America, and the communist threat. And so then you had people like the John Birch Society talking about. I think they're the ones who really started. The anti-communists were the guys that really latched onto this the Hegel in communism as being emblematic of why Hegel was bad. It's like there's a German philosopher that was briefly associated with the Nazi Party. His defenders will say he was associated with them out of necessity. His detractors will say he was associated with them because he was a scumbag. Heidegger, Heidegger's theories about don't get started on Heidegger, but his philosophical teachings really had nothing to do with National Socialism. It's just the fact that he at one time had to join up, as it were. In the same way, but because Heidegger was associated with Nazism, still today you'll have people, if you mention the teachings of Heidegger, will act like, I'm not going to listen to the teachings of a dot 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 Nazi, right? If you're associated with the boys in black, the SS, the Ubermensch, whatever, F you, Heidegger. Some would say that that's a narrow view. We're not here to talk about Heidegger. Back to Hegel. So Hegel was an influence on Karl Marx, and Karl Marx, during the Great Cold War and the anti-communist fervor that existed within the United States, within people in the high echelons of government with the United States, as well as the people on the ground, became. That's where I think you really started seeing this notion of the Hegelian dialectic as being problem, reaction, solution. Then it was taught by guys like from the John Birch Society that may have been a CIA front, right? For people who don't know, John Birch Society was an ultra conservative political group that existed, I believe, in the early 1950s. They had a lot of conspiracy. They birthed a lot of conspiracy theories, including there's a conspiracy theory about their own origin. Were they a CIA front? Certainly, there are historical documents that would suggest that. The question then becomes, were there members of the CIA who started it because they wanted to trick the American people into doing something? Or could it be legitimately that, hey, the CIA really didn't like communists, right? I mean, who drinks the Kool-Aid and who makes the Kool-Aid, right? Plenty of people at Jonestown who drank the Kool-Aid literally and died were the same people who made the Kool-Aid. If you understand where I'm going with that, you know, it's quite possible that like for example the Iraq the invasion of Iraq post 9/11, there we had no reason to be there, and then they tricked us into going there. Well, maybe they tricked people into going there, or maybe there are people really at the higher echelons of American government who thought that we should go there. And the lack of evidence wasn't the fact that the lack of evidence was ignored, not because there was pretext or pretense, but because they ignored it because they were they had an agenda. And their agenda might not have been to do anything bad to the American people. Their agenda on an individual to individual basis might literally have been, we're lying, but we're doing it for the right thing. You ever tell your kids about the existence of Santa Claus? Some people do. And some people say, how can you lie to your kids? Because I want them to have a little bit of magic. There's a reason why they feel justified in lying. Anyway, not to go too far afield. Problem, reaction, solution. Inherited conspiracies. So it's like a lot of the conspiracies about Freemasons. People go, the Freemasons this, the Freemasons that. Well, look at the laundry list of Freemasons. George Washington, Ben Franklin. Oh yeah, these guys were real scumbags. I wake up every morning and go, I hate George Washington. What a douche. If you look at the number of Freemasons that signed the Declaration of Independence, You know what I mean? If you look at the Freemasons through history, like, did you know that every U.S. president was a Freemason? Well, they weren't all bad. Do you know what I mean? Not to get too far afield. The problem is this: is that in this conspiracy theory world, we get all these things joined to us, we get all these things taught to us, but oftentimes we just are explained the concept, but we have no concept of the concept's history. Where did it come from? Who discovered it? So the next thing I want to say to you is talk to you about the difference between primary and secondary sources. Look, have you been taught that the Hegelian dialectic was problem reaction solution? Are you now being told by the one and only C.W. Chanter that you were wrong, that those people lied to you, that they misinformed you about what the Hegelian dialectic was? Well, look, you could simply say, I like those other guys. I like David Icke. I like William Cooper. I like Alex Jones, and C.W. Chanter is an ass. So I'm going to believe those guys. You can do that, or you can do the best thing if you want to figure out what the Hegelian dialectic is. You've been told one thing about the Hegelian dialectic, and now you're being told another. What can you do to figure out the truth? Well, I don't know. Some of you may not be able to discover the truth. Here's the bitter pill, right? Hegel is hard to understand. I've read a little bit of Hegel. It's hard work. It ain't an easy Sunday read. And you're left there, or I personally was left there going, I know what he's talking about. But I know it's not problem reaction solution. We can just put that out of it. You know what I mean? It's like 2 plus 2 equals 4. If they told you that 2 plus 2 equals 5, somebody lied to you. It's not problem reaction solution. It's not, that methodology. It just simply isn't. That's just historically and factually inaccurate description of what the Hegelian dialectic is. But if you don't want to take my word for it, and you discover that you might not just want to be taking somebody else's word for it, you can go to the primary source. You can read Hegel. There are so many people around that need to be reminded. I need to be reminded about this. That just because someone says it on TV or in a movie or on YouTube doesn't mean that it's correct. Even if they turn on a video that says, I'm going to explain to you what George Frederick Hegel's concept of the historical dialectic is, and blah, 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 blah. Whether they go on for 3 minutes or 30, you don't know if they're right. You can come to trust people over time, but if you really want to figure out what's going on, if you really want to know the inside skinny, you got to go away from that secondary source, that reportage, that hearsay, right? That paraphrasing. You got to go away from that secondary reporting and go to the primary source if you can. Okay? And understand this. There are plenty of people out there that might pick up the books. Look, hey, you don't want to be a jerk and say that some people are stupid, or some people are smart, some people are stupid. That's just the way that it goes. The majority of the people in the world probably can't do anything with a book by Hegel except make a doorstop out of it. And that's not, I don't think I'm super genius of the millennium. Sometimes I'm the smartest guy in the room. Oftentimes I'm dead on average. And sometimes I'm the guy that should get the drinks. I know who I am and I know what I'm not. And you should know the same. And understand this, though. You got to go to primary sources if you really know what's going on, and you should follow things up. Don't just have someone tell you that anti-gravitics is this, or UFOs are really like this, or aliens are like this. Go to the primary sources. Do your own research. And it's only then that your journey through growth, just like the historical dialectic of Hegel, will happen. You have research, you have ideas, you expose yourself to different ideas, you put them together, you use your common sense, you try and suss it out, you work with it, you think about it, you bandy these ideas about, and then you grow as a person. You become more and more educated and you figure things out if you can. God willing, you can. Let me end by saying this. I have said affirmatively and stand by my words that the Hegelian dialectic is not this concept of problem reaction solution I began by describing, even though the problem reaction solution model that we've often been told is the Hegelian dialectic, even though that's not the Hegelian dialectic. I'm not here to say that the problem reaction solution is incorrect or wrong. Let me explain. To know that that problem reaction solution model was incorrect, that is to say, that the theory, the idea that those there's a pyramid of power in human society. The people at the top, call them what you will, the Illuminati, the Cabal, the New World Order, the whatever, the Draco reptilian shapeshifting hybrid monster men, whatever they turn out to be, that they have a system in place where they utilize this cold dialectical technique or whatever you want, this pyramidal technique of having having causing problems, right, creating false flags, drugging and creating monarch, butterfly, MK Ultra, super soldier, mind control maniacs that do these things by creating by causing 9/11 to happen, or letting it happen, that they create a problem that's going to engender a reaction that they help stoke, and then they help them propose a solution, the solution which is the actual end game that they want, right? That the powers that be create a problem, stoke a reaction to get the people to do what they want the people to do. To be able to say that that's not the case, I would need to know everything about everything in the world today, right? And I don't. I read newspapers, I read magazines, I listen to internet radio, I read blogs. I do the things that you do to gather information from the wellspring of information that's available to me on the information superhighway, just like you do. I'm not at the high echelons of power. I've never met anyone at the high echelons of power. I've never met a king, a queen, a president. I've never hung out with someone who was like a billionaire. Never met a Rothschild, to the best of my knowledge. I just don't run in those circles. So I don't know. It may be the fact that the powers that be do this thing with the problem and the reaction and the solution. That may be the case. I'm not here to say that that doesn't exist, because it would be hubris of me to say that it doesn't exist, because I don't know. But I do know that it's not the Hegelian dialectic. I do know enough, and I have read enough Hegel, and I have studied enough, and I have done enough research to stand here, God is my witness, hand on my heart, and say, God bless the people that say that the Hegelian dialectic is this problem reaction solution. It might be something, but there should be a new name for that, because that's not the Hegelian dialectic. The Hegelian dialectic doesn't describe that. The Hegelian dialectic describes this something else. This concept of ideas, bringing forth new ideas, and this kind of back and forth interaction, leading to better and better, pure and better, more perfect ideas. Hegel had a teleological view of human development. He's thinking that everything was going to gradually just keep on getting better, that through this process, we would come to better and better ideas. It had nothing to do with concepts of hegemony or maintaining power, or the way that people in power could trick and deceive people below. That's just historically inaccurate to say that it is. So I don't know if this problem reaction solution exists or doesn't exist. All I'm here to say is that that's not the Hegelian dialectic, that using the terms Hegelian dialectic to describe that system is misinformed and incorrect. Now, below I've linked to a very good video by a good friend of mine named Amaterasu, that describes this problem reaction solution situation, and she calls it the Hegelian dialectic. She's talking about that historical conspiracy theory concept of the Hegelian dialectic. I've linked to it to show, as a sign of good faith to people in the community, I'm not trying to sit here and say that I know that the powers that I don't know whether or not there is or is not a powers that be Illuminati or a cabal. My theory is that the people at the top, it's kind of, I don't believe in an organized superstructure that controls everything that happens on the ground. That's not how I believe that world politics historically exists or has been or is. I just don't. Okay, I'm agnostic as to the existence of a grand Illuminati or cabal, being honest with you. But I'm willing to say I would have to know. I would have to be at the top of the pyramid of power to know how it actually works there. And other people would have to be at the top of that power pyramid as well to be able to tell you with authority how it works. They could tell you, David, I could tell you how he thinks it works. He can even lay out the research that he's done or why the evidence that he has to support that theory that that's the way that it works. But he can't tell you with absolute authority. He can't tell you with 2 plus 2 equals 4 authority how it works up there unless he was up there or knew the whole score. And I don't think that anyone knows the whole score. Though I think that sometimes, look, you can see patterns, but not to go too far afield. I don't know, so I point you to her video as well. And I say and repeat, and I'm going to cut off the video there because there's no point in going on saying the same thing over and over again. That the Hegelian, I'm saying the purpose of this video is to say that this thing, this problem reaction solution, is not the Hegelian dialectic. The Hegelian dialectic is something else. And this thing, I don't know whether or not it is the way that it is or isn't the way that it is. All I'm telling you is that it's not the Hegelian dialectic, and it's pointing that out can serve a good purpose to say, hey, just because somebody tells you something doesn't mean that it's the truth. And the only way that you can find out, people say it like, it's like a cliche. You got to do your own research. You got to do your own research. You got to do your own research. But guess what? You got to do your own research, right? You could sit there at 220, going on 310 pounds, going, yep, I get it. Diet and exercise. But until you engage in the process of cleaning up your diet and moving your fat ass around, the pounds aren't going to melt off. You got to do the work. So take my advice. Go try and read some Hegel tonight. And guess what? By tomorrow morning, you will never read Hegel again. I'm telling you, brothers and sisters, I am telling you. If anyone tells you that they can describe the Hegelian dialectic to you without just pointing at it, they can tell you with any specificity really what's going on with the dialectic. You could just go ahead and turn that brother or sister off because they are lying to you or they're so mentally. Nobody can know everything, so don't listen to these people. But just know, believe me now, trust me later, whatever, however you want to do the cliche. Read Hegel, you'll understand what it is, what it isn't. So there you go, the Hegelian dialectic, what it is, what it isn't. It ain't this problem reaction solution. Problem reaction solution may be what they're doing. They may be what they're doing, but you ain't gonna find that in Hegel. And brothers and sisters, you're not even gonna find that in Marx. You know what I mean? Unless you get to the point of Karl Marx where he says, yeah, you know what the capitalists do? They set up this problem, they set up this reaction, and they set up this solution, you know? And what's the problem with communism? And what's the problem with capitalism? And what's the problem with representative democracy? And what do you really think about it? Craziness. Craziness in the gold mine. I love you. Please subscribe. The other link in the video description is just a simple link to my other channel. I am the one who works here now. If you're ever going to search for it, all lowercase, all written out, I am the one who works here. Little space to make it confusing. Now. Okay? Check it out. Hit the link. Feel free to subscribe to that channel as well. It's the new channels, the new direction. But I'm still going to come here every once in a while just to help you guys out, to talk to you guys, and to, hey, be, okay? I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I'm not the dumbest guy in the room. There's no point in debating and fighting, right? We're supposed to be looking for solutions. Speaking of gals that look for solutions, Amaterasu Solar. Though I disagree with her use of the term Hegelian dialectic to describe the contents of her video, the video is well made and it's good. And it may describe the way things actually are. I don't know, but it's a good video. Please check it out, okay? Subscribe to her channel. does good work. Though I disagree with her about a lot of things politically, I wholly endorse her as a human being with a kind heart and a good soul. Hey, make of it what you will. I love you guys. Really do, really do, really do. Stay tuned. I love you. Peace be upon you. I'll be back with you soon. Love you. Adios.